For my presentation, I decided to focus on public safety workers and the fact that their rates of poor mental health and mental illness are much higher than what we see in the general population. My goal was to come up with a support system that could actually make a difference for public safety employees along the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and Louisiana. This topic hits close to home for me. I've spent the last 15 years working in public safety. I started out in the metro Atlanta area and later moved down here to the Mississippi coast. This line of work has been a huge part of my life, and I've seen firsthand how serious the mental health struggles can be. I've dealt with some of it myself, and while I've tried to get help, I've never really found the resources I needed to manage it in a way that worked. Across the 4 departments I worked for, only 1 even offered an employee assistance program. The other 3 didn't provide anything at all, and honestly, they didn't even acknowledge that mental health was something worth talking about. There's this culture in the fire service and public safety in general where you're expected to tough it out. Phrases like man up, don't be soft, or just push through it get thrown around a lot. Showing emotion or admitting you're struggling is seen as weakness, and that mindset runs deep. That's what pushed me to develop a more focused employee assistance program, one that's built specifically for public safety workers. The idea is to have something in place that actually meets their needs, with real resources and people who understand what they're going through. I wanted to design something that could be used across departments along the coast and help fill the gap that so many of us have experienced when it comes to mental health support. This slide gives a big picture look at the intersectional issues affecting first responders when it comes to mental health, especially from the perspective of someone who's lived it. First responders experience significantly higher rates of PTSD, depression, anxiety, and suicide than the general public. These aren't just statistics. They reflect real struggles I've seen throughout my career, and they're part of my own experience too. As for my background, I'm a white male, 40-year-old Christian, though my beliefs are more on the modern side, and I spent 15 years working in the fire service as both a firefighter and an EMT. Those parts of my identity shape how I view this issue and why I'm so invested in it. One of the biggest challenges in this field is the culture. Public safety work tends to push a mentality of toughness. You don't show emotion, you don't talk about what's bothering you, and you just push through it. That kind of mindset can make it really hard for people to admit when they're struggling. And this pressure doesn't just affect new recruits. Even seasoned professionals, people with 10, 15, 20 years on the job, end up conforming to this expectation that they've got to act like everything's fine. I've had coworkers open up to me privately after years of holding things in, and it was clear they'd never felt safe talking about it before. There are also some real barriers to care. A lot of providers aren't culturally competent when it comes to working with public safety professionals. On top of that, there's a real fear that asking for help could affect your job or your reputation at work. And from another perspective, my wife is a physician, and she's noticed the same thing. This group is extremely underserved when it comes to mental health access. That outside insight, combined with what I've seen from the inside, really pushed me to start looking for solutions that actually fit the needs of this community. This is my inclusivity pledge. It is a set of action steps that I believe can start changing the mental health culture within public safety. The first piece is funding certification for seasoned or retired responders to become CISD counselors. That stands for Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. These are people who've lived it, they get it, and with proper training, they can become some of the best mental health resources out there because they already speak the language and understand the pressure. Next, I think mentorship should be a standard part of the job. Pairing experienced staff with newer personnel creates a built-in support system and helps break that silence early in someone's career. It normalizes checking in on each other and having open conversations about what we're going through. Monthly mental health roundtable discussions are another key part of this. These should be required within agencies, just like safety drills or continuing education. Making mental health a regular part of the conversation helps chip away at the stigma. As for the issue of stigma, we've got to advocate for a serious cultural shift. That whole suck it up mentality has done a lot of damage. It doesn't build strength. It isolates people and keeps them from getting help. I also believe departments need to hire providers who have real public safety experience. It makes a difference when you don't have to spend half your session explaining what your job is like. There's an instant level of trust when someone's been in your boots before. Another practical step is requiring mental health evaluations on a regular basis. These evaluations are not just only supposed to happen just after a major incident. The earlier we catch someone who's struggling, the better chance we have of actually helping them. And finally, we need to foster a sense of psychological safety, where it's okay to ask for help and it's seen as a sign of strength, not weakness. If leadership makes that the norm, it'll change the way people show up for each other on and off the job. This is my positional statement. As a 40-year-old white male with 15 years of experience in the fire service, I occupy positions of influence both personally and professionally. I am frequently seen as a leader and chosen to speak for teams, which enables me to shape attitudes and practices. I strongly believe in fairness, structure, and consistency, and I am outspoken about the need to treat new recruits as equals, not as inferiors. My professional power stems from my firsthand knowledge of the fire and EMS culture, which uniquely equips me to identify areas of need and advocate for inclusive reforms. Personally, I leverage my reputation and communication skills to challenge toxic cultural norms that silence mental health conversation. This slide is my call to action, and it's split into two parts: what we can do on a personal level and what we need to push for professionally. Starting with the personal side, this is where real change begins. We've got to be willing to open up about our own mental health. That alone can go a long way toward breaking down stigma. If we show that it's okay to not be okay, it gives others permission to be honest too. We also need to normalize things like vulnerability and emotional honesty in everyday conversations. That doesn't mean dumping all your baggage on everyone you talk to. It just means being real. Saying, yeah, that call got to me, or I've been having a hard time lately, shouldn't feel like something you have to hide. And when someone else opens up, we've got to back them up. Encourage your peers to seek support and shut down any stigma-based comments or judgments when you hear them. That kind of accountability among coworkers is key. On the professional side, we need systems in place that support mental health, not just optional resources, but requirements. Agencies should be doing regular mental health check-ins, the same way we're expected to do physical fitness checks or training updates. Intersectionality also has to be part of how we design support programs. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. People bring different experiences, identities, and challenges to the job, and that needs to be considered when building out EAP policies. Peer support programs should also be formalized, not something casual that gets tossed around, but actually written into departmental procedures. Trauma-informed peer support should be just as standard as incident reporting or safety briefings. And lastly, leadership needs to set the tone. We can't expect the culture to change if those in charge aren't modeling emotionally healthy behavior. When officers and chiefs speak openly about the importance of mental health, it sends a clear message that this matters and that it's safe to care about your well-being. These are a few of the intersectional resources that help guide my research and really reinforced why I chose to focus on public safety mental health for this project. The first TED Talk is by Steve Serbic, a fire chief who opens up about his own mental health struggles in a talk called Climbing the Ladder to Stronger Mental Health. He talks about what it was like to hit a breaking point and how he eventually used his leadership position to break the silence and help others do the same. It's honest, raw, and incredibly powerful. The second TED Talk is by Anthony Gurney, an EMT who dives into the effects of the suck it up culture. He does a great job explaining how the pressure to stay quiet and act tough really takes a toll on mental health over time. It's an important piece that calls out the toxic norms that so many of us have been expected to live by in public safety. The third resource is a documentary called After the Sirens. It tells the stories of Canadian paramedics dealing with PTSD and gives a first-hand look at how mental health issues develop across a career. The real-life experiences shared in it really highlight just how common these struggles are and how isolated people can feel without the right support. The last resource is more clinical. It's a book called First Responder Mental Health, A Clinician's Guide by W.D. Kelly. It's a practical guide that helps mental health professionals understand the culture and mindset of first responders so they can offer care that actually resonates. It's a great tool for anyone planning to work with this population. I hope all of you will take the time to watch both of the TED Talks. They really give a deeper, more personal explanation of the challenges I've been talking about today. But if you don't have time for both, I really urge you to at least watch the first one, Climbing the Ladder to Stronger Mental Health. I think it does an amazing job of showing exactly why this topic matters so much, not just to me, but to so many others who've lived it. Before I wrap up, there's something personal I want to share that I think really ties into everything I've talked about today. On Monday morning, I woke up feeling all right. I'd actually had a few decent days leading up to that, which I was thankful for. But something shifted. I picked up my phone and started scrolling through Facebook, and I clicked on one of those on this day memory notifications. 2 posts came up, both from different years, but both from May 5th. One was about my last shift at my very first fire department. I had written about how much I was going to miss the guys on my shift, and the other shifts too, and how thankful I was for the time I had spent there. But the reason I was leaving was because I had just been hired by the department that I had always dreamed of working for. That was a big moment for me. It felt like I was taking the next step in my career and really moving forward. Then I saw another post from exactly 1 year later where I mentioned that I had officially completed my probation at that new department. That meant I had made it through the toughest year, the one where you're constantly being watched, evaluated, and pushed. It was a huge milestone, and seeing both of those memories back to back reminded me of just how much I had poured into that career. That's when the sadness really hit me. It made me start thinking about why I'm here now, why I was let go from that job at Diamond Head Fire. And it was because I stood up. I spoke out and advocated, not just for myself, but for a rookie who was being treated unfairly. I had been given a direct order from a lieutenant to do something pointless that also put me at unnecessary risk. I refused, respectfully, but firmly, because it didn't make sense and it wasn't safe. Around that same time, I was working overtime on a different shift where I saw a new rookie being completely taken advantage of. He was being sent out alone to pick up food for the entire crew, made to cook every meal, and forced to pay for all the groceries himself. On top of that, he was told that if his cooking wasn't up to standard, he would not be reimbursed. It was hazing, plain and simple, and I couldn't let it go on. So I stepped in, and that was enough to get me fired. I've had a hard time coming to terms with that, especially because I really loved working there. And yeah, part of me still thinks that if I had just stayed quiet, I'd still be employed. But at the same time, I know I did the right thing. And deep down, I think that morning was when it really clicked for me. I'm meant to be a social worker. Advocating for others, especially people who feel like they can't speak up for themselves, is something I care deeply about. It cost me a career I loved, but it also led me to a new path where I know I can make a difference. So I just want to say thank you to everyone here for listening to my presentation today. I'm sorry I wasn't able to give it in person, but I appreciate you sticking with me and giving me the space to share this the way I needed to.